Ladies and gentlemen, let me talk to every woman listening right now. You didn't come this far by accident. You didn't survive what you survived just to be ordinary. You're not here to blend in. You are here to become everything God called you to be. You see, the world might call you emotional, dramatic, or too much, but God calls you chosen. God calls you strong. God calls you His. Listen to me. Faith doesn't make life easy. It makes you unbreakable. And sometimes you got to walk through the fire so you can learn who was walking with you all along. When they counted you out, He was counting the hairs on your head. When you cried yourself to sleep, He bottled every tear. You think God forgot you? Nah, He was just preparing you. See, a woman with God doesn't need to chase. She attracts favor, purpose, peace. Not because of what she's got, but because of who's got her. So if you're tired, keep walking. If you're doubting, pray harder. If you feel small, remember, even mountains move from mustard seed faith. You don't need permission to rise. You were born for this, born to lead, born to love, born to walk in the storm and not get soaked. Because when a woman walks with God, she walks with fire. And no fear, no force on earth can stop that. So stand tall, speak life. And when they ask you how you keep going, tell them, I didn't. God carried me. Faith is not weakness, it's power. In a world that often defines strength by how loud you are, how tough you appear, or how much control you can assert, faith is misunderstood. People think that trusting in something unseen is naive. They think leaning on God is a sign that you're too soft, too dependent, or not strong enough to do it on your own. But here's the truth. Real faith takes more courage than fear ever will. Real faith is waking up every day and choosing to believe in the middle of silence, in the middle of storms, in the middle of seasons when everything feels like it's falling apart. That's not weakness. That's power that can't be faked. It's easy to pretend you're strong when everything is going your way. It's easy to smile when life is smooth and your plans are unfolding exactly as you hoped. But when things break, when people walk away, when the door slams shut and the ooh and faith shows up, that's when the inner strength of a woman of faith comes alive. Not because she has all the answers, but because she knows who holds them. Faith is the strength to say, I don't know how, but I believe it will happen. It's the boldness to move forward when your knees are trembling, when your heart is aching, and when logic says quit. Faith is power because it builds resilience. It teaches you how to stand still when life tries to sweep you off your feet. It teaches you how to wait with grace, how to hope with intention, and how to endure without bitterness. The world teaches hustle, instant results, and immediate gratification. But faith teaches patience. And patience, when rooted in faith, is one of the strongest forces in existence. It doesn't make you passive. It makes you focus. It gives you vision when reality is shouting distractions. It gives you peace when chaos surrounds you. That's not weakness. That's unshakable power. There's nothing weak about surrendering to God. In fact, that's one of the hardest things to do. To surrender your pride, your plans, your need to control. That takes strength. And a woman who has learned to lay her life down before God is not a woman to be underestimated. She's not reckless. She's rooted. She doesn't panic when life hits her hard because her anchor is deeper than emotion, deeper than opinions, deeper than fear. She knows where her help comes from, and that confidence gives her a supernatural edge. Faith is powerful because it transforms pain into purpose. A woman of faith doesn't just survive. She learns, she grows, she rises. She doesn't let the heartbreaks define her. She lets them refine her. What broke her yesterday becomes the wisdom she shares tomorrow. What crushed her spirit becomes the fuel for her calling. Faith doesn't erase the hard things. It redefines them. It turns wounds into wisdom, setbacks into setups, and scars into strength. That kind of transformation isn't weak. That kind of strength doesn't come from willpower alone. That's the kind of strength only God can give. Faith gives you the courage to be gentle in a world that rewards hardness. It allows you to forgive when you've been betrayed. It gives you the strength to love when your heart has been broken. It gives you the boldness to stand for truth when it would be easier to stay silent. This world doesn't always honor faith because faith doesn't shout. It whispers. It whispers peace into panic. It whispers hope into hopeless places. It whispers you're not alone when everything else says you are. And a woman who learns to trust that whisper is more powerful than 1,000 voices screaming doubt. Faith is not an escape from reality. It's the courage to face it, knowing that there's more than what the eyes can see. Faith doesn't deny the pain, but it refuses to let pain be the end of the story. Faith allows a woman to look at her brokenness and say, even this can be used for good. It teaches her to see beyond circumstances and into promise. And when the world tries to silence her voice or dim her light, it's her faith that keeps her standing. Not because she's untouched by struggle, but because she's filled with something greater than struggle. When you look at a woman of faith, you might not see fireworks or headlines, but if you can see the battle she's fought, the nights she's prayed through, the tears she's hidden behind her smile, you'd understand why she walks the way she walks. She doesn't need applause. She doesn't need validation. She has heaven's approval. And that is more powerful than any title, any platform, or any praise this world could offer. There's strength in trusting God's timing when everything in you wants to rush. There's power in holding on to hope when the evidence is missing. There's greatness in being obedient when no one is watching. Faith creates discipline, it creates discernment, it creates depth. It teaches you to walk by spirit, not by sight. And that means your movements aren't random, they're guided. That means your steps aren't uncertain, they're aligned. Even in stillness, you're moving forward. That's faith, and that's power. In a world obsessed with independence, faith teaches dependence on something eternal. And that's where the true power lies. Because everything else, success, beauty, relationships, wealth can be shaken, but faith. When it's real, when it's deep, when it's personal, it stands through storms, through silence, through loss, through betrayal, it stands. And the woman who carries that kind of faith is a force to be reckoned with. There are moments in life when even the strongest woman feels like she's standing completely alone. She looks around and sees people, hears the noise, sees the movement, but something inside her is still aching in silence. There are battles happening inside her heart that no one notices, not because they don't care, but because they can't see them. And that feeling of being unseen, unheard, and misunderstood can be one of the heaviest weights to carry. But just because others don't see doesn't mean you're unseen. Just because they don't understand doesn't mean you're misunderstood by all. Because even in those quiet, broken moments, God is near. You are not alone. It may feel like you've been walking through a season that no one else can comprehend. The nights are long. The silence is loud. You've prayed, cried, and wondered if heaven was still listening. You've held your breath through disappointment and been forced to smile through heartache, and still you keep showing up. Still, you keep pressing forward. That alone is proof of something deeper inside you, something holding you up even when you feel like falling apart. That's something to someone. God is not just a distant idea or a silent observer. He's with you, right there. In the waiting, in the wondering, the breaking, right there beside you, walking with you. Sometimes you might feel abandoned, not because people left, but because life changed. The ones who promised to stay walked away. The ones you trusted broke what you gave. The plans you held tightly unraveled right in your hands. And it leaves you asking questions that have no immediate answers. But the presence of pain is not the absence of God. He never said life would be painless. He said he would be present. In presence, divine presence is more powerful than any explanation. Because explanations can't hold you in the dark. Presence can. Explanations can't quiet your anxious thoughts at 2 a.m., but his presence can. He's been there in ways you didn't even realize. He was there when you got that unexpected encouragement just when you were about to quit. He was there when you found strength you didn't know you had. He was there when you cried yourself to sleep and somehow still woke up with enough energy to face another day. Those were not coincidences. That was God walking with you, carrying you, in fact, because sometimes you're not standing because you're strong. You're standing because he's holding you up. Loneliness doesn't always mean you're physically alone. You can be surrounded by people and still feel empty. But God doesn't need to be seen to be present. His presence fills the spaces no one else can touch. Your thoughts, your doubts, your weary soul. He doesn't shout over your pain. He sits with you in it. He doesn't rush you through healing. He walks with you step by step. He doesn't need you to pretend everything's okay. He can handle the tears, the anger, the confusion. And even when you can't feel him, he's still there. The road of faith isn't always filled with clarity. There are twists and turns and seasons of silence where it feels like your prayers are hitting the ceiling. But even in those moments, something holy is happening. God's silence is not his absence. He's working in the unseen. He's shaping you, strengthening you, refining you. It may feel like he's distant, but in reality, he's closer than your next breath. He's not just watching your journey, he's walking it with you. When you stumbled, he caught you. When you cried out, he listened. When you felt forgotten, he was whispering, I'm still here. Even Jesus, in his most human moment on the cross, cried out, my God, why have you forsaken me? That cry wasn't weakness. It was real. It was raw. It was a feeling every believer experiences at some point. But even in that cry, God was present. Pain doesn't push God away. It invites him closer. He draws near to the brokenhearted. He doesn't run from your mess. He meets you in it. So if you're feeling like no one gets it, no one sees you, no one understands, know this: God does, fully, intimately, completely. He knows the weight you carry, the responsibilities, the hidden battles, the silent disappointments. He knows the pressure of trying to be strong for everyone else when you feel like collapsing yourself. He knows the dreams you've buried because life demanded practicality. He knows the heartbreaks you don't speak about because you've convinced yourself they're old news. He knows and he cares, not just in a general, faraway, abstract way. He cares in the deepest, most personal way. You are not just one of many to him. You are his. God doesn't walk ahead of you shouting commands or behind you judging your pace. He walks with you, matching your steps, holding your hand, guiding you when you're unsure, and carrying you when you can't go on. His presence doesn't always come with dramatic signs or loud voices. Sometimes it's in the peace that makes no sense. Sometimes it's in the strength to say, I'll try again when you wanted to give up. Sometimes it's in the unexpected moment of joy that breaks through sorrow, like sunlight through a storm cloud. Those moments, that's him. You were never expected to walk through life alone. That was never God's design. From the beginning, his intention was communion with him and through him with others. But even when people fail, he remains. Even when relationships break, he stays. Even when you feel like you've let yourself down, he doesn't withdraw. His love is not conditional. His presence is not based on performance. You don't have to earn it. You don't have to reach a certain level of spiritual maturity to qualify for it. You don't have to say the right words or have it all together. He walks with you as you are, right now. There's a strength that grows in you when you realize you're not walking alone. It changes the way you move. It shifts the way you think. It calms the storms inside you. Because when you walk with God, fear doesn't get the final word. Doubt doesn't dictate your direction. Loneliness doesn't get to define your worth. His presence is the constant in every variable, the light in every dark place, the anchor in every storm. You may not always feel him, but feelings are not facts. The truth is, he promised to never leave you nor forsake you. That means even on your worst day, you are still held. Even in your darkest valley, you are still guided. Even when your faith is hanging by a thread, he is still faithful. So no matter what you're facing, whether it's silent sorrow, confusion, or chaos, you are not alone. God is walking with you. Always that pain has a way of shrinking your world. It narrows your vision. It makes you focus on what's right in front of you. The heartbreak, the disappointment, the unanswered prayers. It can be so loud that it drowns out everything else. When you're in pain, it's hard to think about purpose. It's hard to see the bigger picture when the current moment feels like it's crushing you. But what if the pain isn't the end? What if it's part of something bigger, something more meaningful, something only you were called to walk through, not to break you, but to build you? Because your purpose is bigger than the pain. Pain doesn't always come with explanation. It often arrives uninvited, unexpected, and certainly unwanted. It disrupts your plans, shakes your confidence, and tests your faith. You ask yourself questions like, why me? Or what did I do to deserve this? Or is there any point to this struggle? And in the middle of all that, purpose seems like a distant idea, something too far away to hold on to. But that's where the power of perspective comes in. Pain tries to convince you that this moment is forever. Purpose reminds you that this is a chapter, not the whole story. Purpose isn't just about achieving success or arriving at a dream destination. It's about becoming who you were created to be, and becoming often requires breaking. It requires discomfort. It requires letting go of comfort zones and control. Pain has a way of revealing what's real. It shows you what you truly value. It teaches you who's really there for you. It strips away the unnecessary and forces you to confront what's essential. And in that space, that raw, honest space, something holy begins to form. There are people who need what you're learning in this season. There are people whose healing will be sparked by your testimony. There are lives that will be touched because you didn't give up. You may not see it now, but your perseverance is paving a way for others. Your scars will speak. Your wounds will carry wisdom. But you can't get to that point if you let pain become your identity. Pain is part of your journey, but it is not your name. It's not who you are. It's what you're walking through. And on the other side of that walk is purpose. God doesn't waste anything, not your tears, not your breakdowns, not even the moments you wish never happened. He's the only one who can take what was meant to destroy you and use it to develop you. The betrayal, the loss, the delay, he can use all of it. He can use it to deepen your character, strengthen your voice, soften your heart, or sharpen your focus. And while the process may feel like it's tearing you apart, in reality, it's shaping you, molding you into someone stronger, wiser, more compassionate, more grounded. There's something in pain that exposes potential. It forces growth. Comfort rarely produces transformation. But pain will make you pray when you would have coasted. It will humble you when pride crept in. It will draw you closer to God when everything else falls away. And in that closeness, he begins to show you what you were made for. You weren't created just to survive the storm. You were born to lead through it, to learn from it, to rise from it, and then to reach back and lift someone else. Your purpose will require your story, all of it. Not just the highlight reel, not just the victories, but the valleys too. The nights you cried, the days you questioned, the times you almost quit. These are the moments that will one day become someone else's lifeline. And that's why you have to hold on. Not just for yourself, but for the ones who will hear your story and find strength in it. Your pain has the power to unlock doors you didn't even know existed. Doors of empathy, doors of ministry, doors of creativity, doors of calling. Sometimes the very thing you thought would destroy you becomes the thing that awakens you. Pain wakes you up. It gets your attention. And while it's uncomfortable and often unbearable, it's also undeniably powerful. It pushes you out of complacency. It reveals your limits so you can lean into God's limitless strength. It breaks down the parts of you that were never meant to last so that what's eternal, what's unshakable can rise to the surface. And what rises from that is purpose. There are moments when it feels like your life has been derailed, like the pain you went through knocked you off course. But maybe it didn't derail you. Maybe it rerouted you. Maybe what felt like a detour was actually direction. Maybe that closed door saved you. Maybe that loss, as painful as it was, protected you. Maybe the delay was divine. Maybe the pain wasn't punishment. It was preparation. And maybe, just maybe, the version of you that's emerging on the other side is the version God always had in mind. You don't need to understand it all right now. You just need to keep walking. You don't have to feel strong every day. You just need to show up. You don't have to have the whole picture. You just need to trust the one who sees the end from the beginning. Your purpose is not canceled because of what you've been through. If anything, it's being clarified, it's being refined. Pain has a way of cutting away the extra so you can focus on what truly matters. This season of pain may be the soil where your purpose takes root. What if the tears you cried watered the ground? What if the breaking created space for new beginnings? What if all of this is making you into a vessel, not just to carry your own healing, but to carry healing for others? That's the beauty of divine purpose. It's never just about you. It's about who you become and how your life impacts the world around. And often the people who carry the greatest purpose carry the deepest pain. But here's what sets them apart. They don't let the pain stop them. They feel it, face it, and still move forward. They refuse to let bitterness take root. They refuse to let fear define their future. They refuse to let the struggle silence their voice. Instead, they allow the pain to deepen their purpose. They let it remind them of what truly matters, and they use it not as a crutch, but as a catalyst. You're becoming something powerful through this. You may not feel it right now, but it's happening. The pain didn't come to define you. It came to develop you. And what's on the other side, the lives you'll touch, the strength you'll carry, the joy that's coming, it will all make sense. Because your purpose is bigger than the pain. Always has been, always will be. There's something unshakable that happens when you know who walks beside you. When you walk with God, you don't just walk with comfort or encouragement. You walk with authority. Not the kind of authority that demands attention or control. Not the kind that shouts to prove a point or leans on arrogance to be heard. This is quiet authority, divine authority, the kind that shifts atmospheres without needing applause. The kind that causes darkness to tremble, not because of who you are in your own strength, but because of who walks with you. The world sees one person, but the enemy sees who stands behind you, and that changes everything. When you know who you are in God, and more importantly, whose you are, you stop second-guessing your worth. You stop apologizing for your presence. You stop shrinking to fit into spaces you were never meant to be small in. Walking with God gives you the kind of authority that doesn't require external validation. You don't need a title, a stage, or applause to know you matter. Your confidence comes from being covered. And being covered by God means being equipped to face whatever comes your way, not with fear, but with fire. It doesn't mean you won't face opposition. It doesn't mean storms won't come. In fact, walking with God often invites battles that wouldn't exist if you were just walking alone. But the difference is you're never facing those battles by yourself. And that authority you walk in is what keeps you grounded when the enemy throws confusion, chaos, or lies your way. You don't respond like you used to. You don't crumble under pressure like before. You know you got heavenly backing, and that knowledge alone keeps your head high and your spirit steady. There's a shift that happens when you start seeing yourself the way God sees you. You stop settling for less than what you were called to carry. You stop letting fear sit in the driver's seat of your life. You don't walk into rooms wondering if you're good enough. You walk in knowing that if God sent you, you're already enough. Authority in God isn't about pride. It's about purpose. It's about understanding that you were made on purpose, for purpose, and with purpose. And no amount of noise, doubt, or delay can cancel what God has placed in you. And when you walk with God, there's a different tone in your voice. Not because you're louder, but because your words carry weight. There's a different energy in your steps. Not because you're rushing, but because you're rooted. You don't have to fight for attention when you're walking with the one who created it all. You don't have to force doors open when the one who holds the keys is guiding your path. That's authority. Not striving, but surrendering. Not pushing harder, but trusting deeper. And in that trust, your faith becomes unshakable. There are places God will send you, not because you're the most qualified, but because you're the most obedient. And when obedience becomes your posture, authority becomes your portion. You won't have to manipulate people to listen. You won't have to perform to be seen. You just show up with your heart aligned and your feet steady, knowing God goes before you. That's the kind of authority that silences fear. That's the kind of authority that shifts rooms and breaks chains. Authority doesn't mean you won't feel fear. It means fear doesn't get to decide what you do next. It means that even when your voice shakes, you still speak. Even when you're unsure, you still move. Because you're not relying on your own power. You're walking in the power of the one who defeated death itself. And when you walk with that awareness, everything changes. You pray differently. You speak differently. You move differently. You stop reacting to attacks and start responding from a place of victory. Because you're not fighting for victory. You're walking from it. Walking with God gives you clarity in a world full of confusion. It gives you peace in the middle of pressure. It gives you discernment when everything around you is disguised, and all of that flows from intimacy with Him. You can't walk in authority apart from walking closely with Him. It's not a surface level relationship that empowers you. It's the secret place, the late nights you spend seeking His voice, the early mornings you give Him your first breath. That's where authority is cultivated, not in the spotlight, but in surrender. People may see the strength you carry, but they won't always see the tears it took to get there. They'll notice your authority, but they won't always know the humility behind it. Because walking with God often means walking through seasons of refinement. You can't carry divine authority if you're still clinging to ego. God will strip away what's fake so what's real can rise. He'll remove crutches so you can stand firm in Him. He'll take you through battles not to break you, but to build your authority. An authority forged in fire, not comfort. And it's not just for you. That authority is meant to overflow. It's meant to set others free. When you walk into a room carrying the presence of God, people will feel something shift. Not because you're special in your own strength, but because of what you carry. Authority isn't loud, but it is undeniable. It shows up in the way you love, the way you forgive, the way you keep going when most would have given up. It shows up in your ability to speak life when death seems louder, and your courage to stand when everyone else runs. You weren't meant to blend in. You weren't meant to live a life of fear or self-doubt. You were born to carry something greater. You were chosen to reflect His glory in a world that desperately needs light. And walking in that truth, walking with that awareness shifts how you see yourself and your purpose. You're not here by accident. You were placed here for such a time as this. And with God walking beside you, there is no room too dark, no battle too fierce, no challenge too great for the authority you carry. You don't need to beg for favor. You don't need to chase opportunities. When you walk with God, favor finds you, doors open for you. People are drawn to what's on you, even if they can't explain it. And that's the kind of influence that lasts, not the kind built on popularity or trends, but the kind rooted in eternal truth. You become a carrier of purpose, a vessel of life, a walking testimony of what God can do with someone fully surrendered. The world may try to define you by your past, your failures, your flaws. But when you walk with God, He redefines you. He calls you chosen, anointed, equipped, and empowered. And no one can cancel what God has ordained. You carry authority not because of perfection, but because of His presence. You carry strength not because of your record, but because of your relationship. And that kind of authority changes everything. It changes how you lead, how you speak, how you love, and how you live. When you walk with God, you walk in authority. When you walk with God, you don't walk in fear. You walk in faith, in strength, in divine authority. You may not always feel worthy, qualified, or ready, but when He goes before you, no obstacle can stand against you. His presence covers you, His power flows through you, and His purpose fuels you. Your steps are ordered. Your voice carries weight, and your life becomes a reflection of heaven's calling. You weren't created to live small or silent. You were made to carry kingdom authority. So stand firm, move boldly, and remember, when God walks with you, you never walk alone, and you never walk without power.